Okay, well, welcome back to our 6th Chamber City County Connects You teleconference. My name is Tara Doyle-Enneking. I am the President and CEO of the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce. My co-facilitator today is Lori Waltier, our Director of Communications, and she will facilitate the Q&A portion of our program. As we strive to bring you relevant information in uncertain times, we hope the resources we present to you offer some help through these teleconferences. Our panel today covers a nice gamut of topics ranging from an 11th hour Pierce County bipartisan approval of a $3 million small business relief package to legislative updates from Olympia. We'll also take a look at the valuable services that Workforce Central provides job seekers and employers. And we'll hear from a strategist, analyst, and consultant that can share some critical analysis of what the Pierce County economic downturn and outcome may look like and what small businesses can do now to combine their strengths for a more positive outcome. And to round things up, we will hear from our friends at Puyallup Main Street Association on their creative pivot to bring our beloved farmers market to you. Our format will be as follows. Each of our speakers will provide an update, and then we will open it up to questions from our listeners. Please use the chat function through Zoom for your questions or email admin@puyallupsumnerchamber.com. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Your participation during the Q&A is a valuable component of the program. It is important to mention that on each call we have state representatives, members of county and city council, and they are on standby for your questions as well. We appreciate them tuning in as we are all in this together, and it's important for them to be a part of the dialogue. Now let me introduce you to our panel of speakers. We will hear from District 5 Pierce County Councilman Marty Campbell, our Chamber Coalition's lobbyist, Carolyn Logue, the Interim Chief Executive Officer of Workforce Central, Helen McGovern-Pilant, and Teresa Delchino, the Director of Business Solutions. We will also hear from the Executive Director of Puyallup Main Street Association, Kerry Yanasak, and the founder and CEO of New Canvas Advising, Hannah Thomas. So let's kick things off with County Councilman Marty Campbell, who had a very valuable update that he provided our chamber community. In fact, he and County Councilman Dave Morrell were so timely with getting some great news out about some funding that was released from Pierce County, and we will forever be eternally grateful as many businesses were able to take advantage of that. So Marty, I'm going to unmute you and welcome and thank you again for, your great collaboration and timely collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for having me here. Kerry, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time since I had a small business in downtown Tacoma, and it's part of that being a small business owner that I bring to County Council. Just give you an update on several things that the County Council has done that the Chamber might find of interest. Most recently was a reauthorization of our small business loan fund, but more importantly, a restructuring of it. Initially, when things first, about a month ago or so, maybe a little less, could have been a year, I don't know. But about 3-4 weeks ago, we authorized $640,000 for small business support and relief, but we only did that in the unincorporated areas. What we rolled out last night, Tuesday night, was $3 million in small business support. The changes we have is we moved from 10 to companies that are 20 employees or less. Then we also changed the, instead of just unincorporated, businesses within incorporated, inside the city of Puyallup, city of Tacoma, any incorporated city are eligible to apply for this now. They're companies that serve our county, and we know that many of our county residents from all across the county work at these businesses inside the municipality, so it's important that we support them. This will be up to $20,000. It's based on number of employees. So it's you get about $1,000 per employee. And this is a 1-year, no interest loan. So it's about as easy. The form to fill out is very easy. You can go on the Pierce County Economic Development webpage. It's right there, COVID-19. Go in there. It's a 1-page. So as simple as an application, 12 months, no interest loan. Again, up to $20,000. 2 other changes that we made is that previously you had to be in business for a year, and this left out some people who had purchased a business. Say last October, you took it over from someone else, and this has been a great business for 20 years, but now technically in the eyes of the state, it was a new business because you had new ownership model. If you can demonstrate that you've been in business for over a year, even if it's a new ownership model, but it's the same employees, you have the same opportunity for the relief funds. And again, it's available within the city limits, and it is available to nonprofit organizations. That doesn't really matter. The employees need the help, the businesses need the help, and so whether or not you're operating for-profit, nonprofit, both your services are needed, and we want to make sure that you're there on the backside of this. So that's the big one that we rolled out. Another big one that was kind of further down on the agenda and actually didn't get as much interest, which to some is going to be huge, is $500,000, $500,000 in funding to Emergency Food Network for emergency food distribution and fighting food insecurity. We know at this time that lots of people, while they're on unemployment or not eligible for unemployment, the lines at our food banks are getting increasingly longer. And the model that they've had to operate on has had to shift drastically. We already, 3-4 weeks ago, put forward $250,000. It was very well spent and very well distributed. With that, we were able to come back. We were looking at another $250,000. Made a last minute motion. We bumped that up to $500,000. So over the next couple months, they can have the stability they need to make sure that they're getting the food out to the people who need it. And what would a council be if we didn't write letters? And so one thing that we've done is there's about 4 letters that we've signed on to, just more policy so you understand where we're going in direction. One was a request of our county auditor, or county assessor, excuse me, our county assessor, to delay property tax that is due, particularly as can be for people who have to pay property tax on their small business fixtures, from April 30th to May 30th. So we asked for a 1-month delay. That has been granted. So instead of April 30th, if it's something that you need, you can delay that tax payment by a month. We also did a letter to the governor to open up residential construction. While we'd like to see all businesses that can safely operate be open as soon as possible, one in particular that hasn't seemed to make sense for a lot of people is residential and small commercial construction. And so construction by its nature many times is very spread out. With proper use of PPE, they can be safe work sites. So we sent a letter to the governor asking for that. Another one that I drafted this week is also to open up permitting and inspection services and let them get going right away, because there's nothing like opening up the construction industry and then telling them it'll be a week delay for the permit for them to get started. So let's make sure that we have all the permits and all the inspections in place so that when we do reopen and authorize construction to be able to get to work, that they can truly get to work. And finally, working with Deanna Keller on something that she brought forward. So Helen, please tell Deanna, thank you for this. And a letter with the Port of Tacoma and signing on as the Pierce County Council and entity as an entity to the state of Alaska, affirming our support with them. As you know, they are one of our #1 trading partners. Almost all goods flowing to Alaska come through the Port of Tacoma. Almost all of it comes through Puget Sound, the vast majority through the Port of Tacoma. They're a very important partner to the functionality of the Port of Tacoma down there. So we went ahead and signed on to that to say that we do value them. So big news on the small business front, the big part there, allowing businesses within the city of Tacoma to apply for those funds. And I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Fantastic work. Again, thank you so much for your collaboration and relationship. We appreciate it.
And I do want to give shout out to the rest of the council. These were unanimous, near unanimous actions. And Councilmember Dave Morrell had a very big part, particularly in drafting the small business portion. He's been a great advocate for our small businesses, great partner to work with.
Thanks for mentioning that. So on to our next guest, and Marty mentioned letter writing. Carolyn Logue would be someone that has written many letters, has worked with chambers to write letters. She is our lobbyist for the South Sound Chamber of Commerce Legislative Coalition. And so she is here to bring us some update on what's going on there. There's certainly potentially some asks of this group that I will have following our writing letters, and would like to hear from your associations, your own personal industry lobbyists, so we can join forces together. So hopefully Carolyn can shed some light on that. Thank you so much for being with us.
Sure, I hope so. First of all, everyone can hear me okay, I hope.
Great.
Good. Just, it's really funny because usually at this time we're doing these detailed legislative updates, and I think everybody sort of forgot there was a legislative session that actually occurred this year. That we do have a budget, we do have a transportation budget, we do have a capital budget. I would say at this point all of those are up in the air. The governor did do several vetoes. I think ended up about 235 million to 400 million, depending on how you're calculating, whether it's the 2-year, 4-year budget. And our anticipation is that even though they did turned out to be about $175 million in COVID funding, kind of specific for relief, did some things, putting extra money into unemployment insurance to allow relief from charges for those who have to lay people off. The size and the scope of this is such that they're really going to have to, the legislature is going to have to come back in at some point to authorize some additional spending, to probably make additional cuts, to rework that budget to get us through what looks like anywhere from a $4 to $6 billion hole right now. Getting residential construction, getting construction going again will be good. Getting car sales going again will be good because, right now we just have this significant drop in revenue, not just sales tax, but B&O tax. And you'll see, I think, going forward, I don't think this year, but going into the next biennium, you'll see discussions again about income tax. You'll see discussions, capital gains tax. How do we do in addition to how deep do the cuts need to go? And I think also looking at education and what's going on there. Are the schools reopening in the fall? What's going to happen? Those will all have to be budget discussions as we move forward. So for right now, I kind of hesitate to even talk about the budget. I think I'm going to focus just right now. The South Sound Coalition, that transportation budget is a huge concern. They did some patchwork to try and make sure that the gateway projects, the 509-167, to make sure that all of those could keep going. They delayed the starts of some things that weren't really ready to go anyway and found this way to do this patchwork that worked. But we knew because of the $30 car tabs, we were going to be in initiative 9076, we were going to be going into a hole next year. It's worse now. I think Roger Millard, the Secretary of Department of Transportation, said it was like $100 million a month in revenue loss right now. There's no sales tax, and even the pay per mile, if we had that, nobody's driving. So it's really just what's this going to look like next year is a huge issue. And of course, once again, as part of the whole construction discussion, is how do you get DOT doing construction again? So I think there's going to be some interesting things happening there. It's not going to be easy. Once again, they might have to do some backfilling during a special session there. And I know they're trying to keep the capital projects going and transportation projects going just because they also are revenue drivers for the state and provide jobs. So with that, I would say probably big things that we saw this year. Energy, the whole energy sector, because so much had happened the previous year in 2019. The big energy bill that passed this year was House Bill 2311, which was about greenhouse gas emissions. Ratchets our state down to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So that one passed and is signed. And in addition, they're going to be including in the emissions accounts and calculations state wildfires. So they'll have some of that discussion there too. We all know about the B&O tax increase and the changes that happened in service where they retroactively had to go back in and change that to impact pretty much all services, then it exempted businesses that gross $1 million or less. So they stay at the 1.5. If you're at under $1 million, over $1 million, you're at 1.75 for your B&O tax. The other, I think a lot of the other ones that passed, really, nothing huge and significant, I would say, for business, nothing earth shattering on the business side. A lot of little things like some changes to the pregnancy discrimination law, some kind of tweaks to the paid family and medical leave law. They just some little things. They did pass a plumbing certification bill, which will move all plumbing and plumber certification under one piece of law, but did it carefully to try and not change anything for anybody who does that work currently. So it's just going to be, I think, kind of catching up with a lot of these little things. One of the, just like expressing breast milk, you cannot require a written doctor's note for somebody to express breast milk in your business. You can't require them to give you a doctor's note before you find a place for them to do that and allow them to do that. It's those kinds of things that passed. So I've sent Tara all of the little bills, so she's got it. Housing was a big thing for our Chambers Coalition as well, and a number of things did pass on housing. One of the things I do want to bring up is the infill development bill passed, which at least gives you a chance to do something with some of those vacant lots. But once again, a lot of it's going to depend, I think, some of the programs and of course local and state budgets, and what's going to happen with housing programs going forward. So there's a lot up in the air. I think at this point, I think I want to, I'm not going to go too much, but maybe ask some questions and see if there's anything in particular that anybody has. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see policies going forward, what next year looks like. And we were just really glad to see them get out on time this year.
Great. So we have a Q&A, and I know you had to hop on a little late. We have the
Sure.
Q&A portion at the end, but I do quickly want to say if there was any advocacy you thought any of this group could sort of jump on now. I know this group, we're a chamber group, we're business. We certainly want to see the reopening of the economy sooner rather than later, but are there even steps along the way that would be helpful to join on, write letters, anything that you think this group should know about?
Well, I think definitely looking at one of the things, so there's a couple different elements in the reopening I think that a place like, you know, Puyallup Sumner could address. One, what's right for your city and your area in Pierce County? You know, do you have retailers? Do you have small retailers that don't get a lot of traffic in their shop? Do people feel pretty comfortable that they could control that? How are you working with law enforcement and that type of thing to help if something happens? What's happening in your community? Definitely, I think everyone is trying to figure out how to get construction back going, and how, and asking the scientists to say to all business, not just construction, how can I do this? What do I need to do in my business to get going? And then I think saying, you know, please, basically, I think letters and advocacy saying, we want to get going, we want to do this right, we want to do it safely, we need your help to know how we do it safely in our business. So not just are you essential or are you not, more of some sort of assistance from, I'm a hairdresser, who do I ask to find out what exactly, how do I get some personal protective equipment, knowing I'll need masks and gloves? Where do I find that? Help us get this stuff so we can be safe, so we can reopen slowly, get things going, but be safe and make sure we have the materials. I think that's going to be, you know, that kind of advocacy on the behalf of small business is going to be really important, because a lot of small businesses probably are sitting there going, I could probably do this, but I need to know how to best protect everyone involved, because they don't have huge staff. They don't have a lot of people necessarily in their business at one time, and they can do it. You know, so the question will be, how can I do this? How can it safely? What should I look for? So I think definitely not just don't open up, but help us know what to do. Trust the business community, trust your small business community, you know, in particular your businesses in Puyallup Sumner. All those businesses know their neighbors, and they don't want anyone to get sick because of their business. So it's getting that kind of advocacy, making sure your legislators are carrying that message to their meetings that they're having, and allowing there to be some local flexibility. You're not Seattle. You don't have the level of groups that get into places. And I think then also some real advocacy. What are you going to do about those businesses that just cannot open for a while? And what's going to happen next year? I mean, please don't do tax increases. You guys are going to be reeling from probably a lack of from a state fair this year. It's probably not going to happen. Or if it is, it won't look like it usually does. You know, you're going to be reeling just from the fact that restaurants aren't going to be open. Or you may not be able to have a lot of people in them. And even your hairdresser, everybody's going to probably have to have fewer people coming in. That idea of getting so many people in the door is not necessarily going to be the way it is probably for a while longer. So what's the state going to do to help? And you know, what's going to happen with workers' comp? What's going to happen with unemployment insurance? And I think just continually talking to your legislators about that, and really advocating with them and making sure that they're looking at, how do you not hurt your ability to create another job or to hire you. Let's say, get yourself going, hire people again, and maybe then create 1 or 2 other jobs.
Great. That was a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're great. Always. All right. For many of you may or may not be familiar with Workforce Central, but that is one of the reasons we've provided this platform today to learn all about the great work they're doing for job seekers and employers. And with us is Helen McGovern-Pilant. Am I saying that right?
You are, yes.
Okay. Who is the interim CEO. So welcome, and I'm excited to hear a nice overview of what the good work you are doing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Tara. I have to say hello to my boss, Marty, because we are a government agency, and it's my pleasure to be here to join you as the interim CEO. I have a little bit of connection to what Marty had said. For 10 years previous to my retirement, I was the executive director at Emergency Food Network, and I had the pleasure of serving a lot of Sumner, Puyallup hunger relief programs like All Saints and Puyallup Valley and Salvation Army and Sumner and Nourish and St. Andrews. So thank you what you're doing, and thank you to the council for recognizing how significant that need is now. WorkSource Pierce is a partner of the nationwide system of American Job Centers, and it provides a full range of assistance to both job seekers and businesses under one roof. I've come to know, though, in my 4 months of tenure that perhaps it's one of the best kept secrets in Pierce County, and many may not realize what a good tool we can be to help you through these difficult times. There are 12 WorkSource organizations that are in the state of Washington, and they're all made up a little bit differently. Some of them are nonprofits, some of them partner with their local chambers actually, and some of them are government agencies. Workforce Central is a government-led agency that has a mission to increase access to services for job seekers, workers, and businesses. And we strive to enhance the quality of service offered across the system to ensure consistent and effective experiences both for the stakeholders while cultivating economic prosperity for our clients. Workforce Central carries out the vision of the chief elected officials and the Pierce County Workforce Development Council by coordinating, administrating, and advancing the work for the workforce development system, which is known as WorkSource Pierce. You might have thought of it as the unemployment office, but that's only a small part of what happens. Our executive board consists of our current chair, County Exec Bruce Dammeier, Tacoma Mayor Victoria Woodards, and council members Connor McCarthy and Marty Campbell, as well as the Workforce Development Council Chair, April Gibson. The Pierce County Workforce Development Council, or WDC, is a business-led council, and it's comprised of community leaders with expertise in public, private, and philanthropic sectors. And they have a wealth of expertise. The WDC works side by side with the chief elected official officers to address workforce deficiencies, to upskill workers, to develop potential employees, and to ensure that the workforce development system offers the highest quality of services to its customers. The members of the WDC are listed on our website, but at our actual center, who you'll find as our partners are the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, of course, the employment of ESD, Employment Security, doing the yeoman's job right now for unemployment, Department of Labor of Industries, Career Team, which provides employment and training for support for adults, who sometimes have barriers, ResCare, who we'll hear a little bit more about later with our business solutions, and they also provide employment to young adults, the Job Corps, who we all know about, Clover Park Technical College, and then we have additional systems partners who are not actually located at the center. We partner with Department of Social and Health Services, JBLM, Goodwill, all 18 branches of the Pierce County Library System, and Tacoma Urban League. And WorkSource was established by a Workforce Investment Act in 1998, and then it was reauthorized in 2014. And the center offers employment and training services that include, as I said, unemployment, helping people find jobs through partnerships with businesses, learning strategies for finding a job, getting job assistance with resume building and interview practice. We also do referral to training programs, which will include paid training and financial assistance, which participating in those kinds of things are going to become even more necessary as we try to get out of this emergency we're in. And we work with business who anticipate layoffs through our rapid response program. For a little perspective, let me share with you some unemployment numbers that you maybe have seen or heard about, but what's happening in Pierce County. In March of 2019, there were 2,481 unemployment claims. And historically, March is always a month where, employment is kind of getting a little uptick and claims go down. So remember, that was about 2,500 March of last year. March of 2020, the claims were 61,761. And in the last 4 weeks, the moving average of initial claims is almost 2,500% higher than last year. In the 5 weeks since the corona pandemic restrictions took hold, 89,867 Pierce County residents have filed for unemployment benefits. That's 19.6% of the people working in our area in February. And those numbers were recorded before this big surge that we had on Sunday, where people who are part-time or were contractors or self-employed could have applied. So you're going to see that number spike again. And in this time of corroded, our emphasis has been on accessing funding for both the current situation that we're working in with dislocated workers and to worry about the economic recovery and anticipating how to successfully transition. So through our membership with the Washington Workforce Association, we have actually partnered and applied for 2 grants in the last, I don't know, it seems like the last year or the last minute, I'm not sure, but it's the last couple of weeks. One of them is the Disaster Recovery Grant, where each state could get a maximum of $25 million. We requested just over a little $2 million to increase our staffing to anticipate the funding that is going to be coming in, as well as working with approximately 200 people for training opportunities, which includes their salaries and the training required through that funding. The next round, which we are applying for on next Wednesday, actually, is $60 million. And this is for transition and recovery. And we have applied for $6.2 million in Pierce County to assist over 5,000 individuals with training, apprenticeships, paid internships, transitional jobs, financial support during the training, as well as other costs. Because one of the points of our focus is that we don't want people who are on the cusp, people who may have had 1 or 2 jobs before and are now facing this pandemic, to be entering poverty. So rapid response is one of the services I mentioned that we provide through our business services teams. And I actually had the opportunity to assist a Puyallup business just by chance this last week. This business owner didn't know where to turn for the information that she needed. And I happened to be on Facebook and see that Krista Linden of Step by Step and Farm 12 was mentioning that unfortunately she was anticipating letting some of her staff go, and she didn't think they would qualify for unemployment. So I know Krista, as I'm sure many or all of you do. So I messaged her that I could assist, and she shared that her human services person was down to part-time, and that she didn't know where to turn to get the answers. So I was immediately able to connect her with links to employment security, descriptions of the financial support that was available, and opportunities for her staff as well as her business. She's a great community leader, and she cares deeply about her employees. And this gave her peace of mind to be able to offer them guidance in immediately accessing these resources. I'm pleased to know that Farm 12 is still open. They're serving wonderful family-style pickup meals, and the beautiful hanging baskets I get every spring are going to be available April 27th. So a little commercial, I'm a fan. You can order those and pick them up after April 27th. But now I'd like to add, and so one of the things we were talking about, that's an overview of what our agency does, but I'm going to hand this over to Teresa Delcinio. She's the director of our business services at Workforce Central, and she's going to talk specifically about rapid response and some other programs that can help the business community now and as we look towards the future.
Thank you, Helen. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yes,
Yep.
Okay, great. I wanted to first of all, thank you for that overview of where we are with our unemployment. I know this is not a surprise to a lot of folks, but I wanted to touch on some of the greatest workforce impacts that we've seen in terms of industry by furloughs, layoffs, and closures. The accommodation and food services has shed over 1/3 of its labor force. Construction is about 1/4. And of course, retail, healthcare, and social assistance are also largely affected. We did see a drop last week, the first drop in initial claims. But as per Helen's comment just recently, I imagine it's going to go back up again. So we'll be watching that. Most of the employer calls that we get continue to be around unemployment claims and how to walk their folks through that process. A lot of questions, a lot of change on a daily basis. So it's really hard to keep up with that. So having someone that you can call and get guidance from is really essential for folks. But we're also seeing an uptick in employers requesting assistance with job postings and recruitment. There are several sectors that we're seeing that are actually hiring fairly significantly right now. Healthcare and caregivers, aides and nursing and clinical staff. Services, so customer service, security, automotive and environmental are also hiring. In manufacturing, we're seeing machine operators, assembly and production technicians, quality control and engineering positions that are open. Retail-wise, we know our grocery system is always looking for help. Home and hardware stores, auto parts, cashiering, and retail associates. A couple others here, transportation, warehouse, and logistics. There's a strong need for drivers. Warehouse packaging, material handling, freight handling, that sort of thing. And then social services, our housing and shelter, family and food services are also hiring. So traditionally, our approach to rapid response consisted of connecting with employers who were anticipating layoffs and then rapidly moving to provide information to employees about unemployment insurance, the claims process, how do I apply, education and training resources. It's a great opportunity when someone's looking at being laid off to consider upskilling and getting certifications and going back to school for something. So we connect with those community technical college partners as well. And then the work source services that we offer job seekers at our center. We do this prior to the anticipated data separation with the employer in order to give employees an opportunity to get a sense of what their next action steps are or understand their game plan going forward. But in today's environment, our rapid response has changed. It's more of a outreach focused, needs-based service consultation for employers and their employees. Our business solutions consultants are armed with a spreadsheet of COVID-19 resources and other business resources about federal, state, local, shared work. We've got directions, ability to direct folks to those resources, and then also connect them with our local and regional partners around those services. We're also encouraging businesses to sign up for our WorkSource Weekly, which is a weekly email update about changes to all of these programs and benefits. So the other thing that we're doing that's of interest is now conducting virtual hiring events whereby employers are able to share their information about their company, the opportunities that are available, what they're looking for, and how to apply, with a Q&A session that's moderated between the employer and the job seeker. We provide the platform, the advertising and the registration of job seekers and the event management, and then the employer can, we then submit to the employer at the end of that session the resumes that we receive, and then the employer can either conduct their own hiring process after that, or they can work with us on additional services such as pre-screening of applications, or setting up interviews, that sort of thing. So we've just started that process. So far it's working really well, and expect that that's going to be a highly requested service to our business community. In terms of recruitment, we continue to do job postings and recruiting support. We've got about 14,000 or plus distribution list of unemployment claimants and job seekers that we can reach out to on employers' behalf. So there's an active database of available workforce. We also offer work experience, on-the-job training programs that include wage support. So it's either like a work experience site that's paid for by WorkSource directly, or it could be an on-the-job training program whereby a percentage of the wages are reimbursed to the employer. In addition, a couple other things just to wrap it up. Labor market and wage analysis information we provide, and access information to tax credits that might be a benefit to you. So in close, we are actively working with state partners to adapt our services and our approaches to better serve our community. We recognize there's a great need and an uncertain time, and we would love to hear from you. We'd really like to know what we can do to help you now, and then help you in the future, near and distant. So we'd be really interested to hear from you all. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Gosh, with the myriad of services, there's just so many people at different facets of where they're at. You're going to have folks pivoting into new careers that could take advantage of your services. I did speak with Ellie in your office as well about how our chamber can get more involved with you to message all the great work you're doing and figure out if there's some sort of tailored programming we can incorporate into our programming to really partner and take that next stage. So thank you both for introducing us to all that you're doing. I think this is just the beginning. So thank you so much. We are due to hear from Kerry Yanasak next from Puyallup Main Street Association. We've got some news on the farmers market, and we'd also love to hear about the other work. I know you're doing a great job also reaching out to a lot of businesses and resource support. So Kerry, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. First of all, lest I forget, a big shout out to Marty Campbell, my old friend as well. I've not seen him in a number of years, but Marty, I have followed your career and I'm very proud of you. And I will add Dave Morrell and I are old friends as well. Anyway, farmers market. So there's a bunch of things that Puyallup Main Street does, but there's two things on the horizon. One is the Meeker Days Festival, which is the largest street festival in Pierce County that brings somewhere around up to 100,000 people down to downtown Puyallup, usually over Father's Day weekend. I can tell you that it will not happen Father's Day weekend this year, and we're looking at the latter part of August for that event to happen, and we don't know what that event is going to look like at this point. So we'll cross that bridge probably sometime first part of July. Farmers market. So the farmers market has been in the years past a huge social event, as you know. One of the slogans is "Meet me at the market," and I can't tell you how many times my kids call me and say, "I'll meet you down the market." So we came up with that slogan, "Meet you at the market." Will not be a social event anymore. We're looking at 5 locations. Now, the market is held in the Pioneer Park Pavilion, and the street behind the pavilion, and also in the park, where the parks are closed. And we will not have use of the pavilion this year, but we will hopefully have use of the street behind the pavilion. But what we're doing is looking at a total of 5 different locations. One is, well, I won't disclose all of them, but it looks like that we'll be opening probably the first part of May, and the location will probably be up in the mall parking lot outside the old Sears store. And it will be a very controlled environment. It will be a very utilitarian market. It will be presented for the purpose of buying farm goods. It gives people that want fresh produce an opportunity to buy it, and it gives those farmers an opportunity to sell their goods. But we're not going to see craft items, and we're not going to have any entertainment like that, I'm afraid. The vendors, so it's very controlled. Farmers markets fall into the same category as grocery stores, so we've got the green light to go with that. I know that the Olympia market is going, Ballard market is going, Bellingham market is going. I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of people attending those markets. That remains to be seen. I think I saw a report yesterday on Facebook and also on one of the morning news shows that 75% of the public is not in favor of opening up the business community and those kinds of things yet. We don't know if that's true or not. We'll find out, but it will be very controlled. It will be controlled, maybe like going to Home Depot, control how many people walk in, how many people exit, and face masks for all the vendors. Not going to be touching the food. You won't be within 6 feet of anybody, and they'll be all screened, but be very much a protected environment. The parking lot is not a very fun place to have a market. I have been to markets that are on asphalt parking lots. They work, but Puyallup's got a pretty cool thing going, but unfortunately it won't be in that fashion at this point. So I think they're looking at the first weekend of May 9th. I think that's a Saturday. And we'll be on a contract with them all from week to week. So as soon as we get the okay to go back downtown Puyallup and things open up there, then we'll make a big splash. We can use the street behind the pavilion, but we're limited to 40 vendors if we do that because of the space. And the city of Puyallup is being very cautious about how they handle this. And up on South Hill Mall, we can handle easily 75 vendors up there. And I think we'll be able to again, have more product for the consumers. And at this point, it is just an opportunity for people to go buy their product and then go home. So that's it.
Nice. Yeah, no, I like that creative thinking and partnering. We've got David Montevideo, I know, on the line also out at South Hill Mall, and that's all news to me. I'm excited to hear that partnership happening. There were rumors of some potential virtual market. Is that something you're exploring, or?
There is a virtual market. I am not the expert on that. I understand they are making sales, and each one of the vendors, you can go to the Cal Farmers Market webpage and it'll go by categories of what product you're looking for. And then they'll have the farmers that are participating and then how they will deliver the goods. So you pick it up there or they meet you wherever. But yes, that is going, and they are selling product and making money, as I understand. And David Montevideo has bent over backwards to help accommodate us. So we really appreciate that.
Terrific. All right. And for our final panelist today, a strategist, analyst, consultant, one other agency that I needed to Google to understand, and I'm absolutely impressed with the work you've been doing now that I have a better understanding of it. But we have Hannah Thomas here from New Canvas Advising. So welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. I had to take myself off mute. Thank you for having me, and it's good to see everybody. So I made a few talking points for myself, so I'm going to turn my head this way so you get to see the side of my head. I'll just say I've done organizational design for about 26 years, and then I've been at the bedside as an oncology researcher for about 16 years. So, and I work with lots of different businesses. So I've worked with United Postal Service. I'm currently working with the utility company, a water company. So I have the spectrum, and I love working with businesses. So I enjoy hearing everybody talk about the businesses. That is my passion. So one of the things is my business is based, I have a virtual office in Seattle, but I live in Puyallup. So I get to sort of sample both worlds. And somebody had made a comment, I wish I could remember her name, but in any event, sort of some of the initial breathing of life will likely happen in Seattle, but it will take a while for Puyallup to regain its footing. And so one of the focuses, I've been doing some research around Puyallup. Puyallup is a bedroom community. And I'm not sure if, not everyone knows what bedroom community means, but essentially it's a suburb. And such that the businesses, innovation happens in some of the larger cities, and then people live in Puyallup. So essentially what happens is it's a long chain, federal, state, all of those decisions happen, but then the city has to deal with the consequences. So I was listening to it's Pierce County Councilman Derek Young, and he noted in February 18th of this year, he said economic explosion that is happening up to the north of us. The problem is that we're not necessarily getting all that salary down here, but we sure are getting the people moving here as a result. So essentially, the practical implication is, again, that the decisions that are made at the system or the government level, it has to be managed at the city level. So how are the decision-making processes? How is the city council? How is that happening here? But we can't leave all the decision-making for the city council to deal with it. The businesses have to come together. So one of the things we also considered, we, as in myself and then Brooke, who is also on the line, is roughly 78 to 80% of people, they leave Puyallup every day to go work in Seattle. There is also, so it's broken out in terms of high wage earners, and then there's low wage earners. Roughly 20% of low wage earners also leave Puyallup to work elsewhere. And that's because there's less than 50 businesses in Puyallup that have greater than 50 or more employees. So they're not required to provide benefits. So the majority of businesses in Puyallup are small businesses. And so people generally, again, they live in Puyallup, hence it's a bedroom community. They live in Puyallup, but they work elsewhere. So all of those tax dollars, B&O, right, payroll tax dollars, they don't live in Puyallup. They live elsewhere. So then the city itself is, again, it's going to be sort of on that long tail of recovery. Even from a Pierce County perspective, when Bruce had indicated in this call I was on last week that there is the unemployment, it was up to 20%. So Pierce County will recover later than even King County, but Puyallup certainly will, because it's going to be on that long tail. So in terms of that robustness or speed that Puyallup is able to hang on for recovery is going to really depend on the business community and how it comes together from an innovative approach. So I've been talking with venture capitalists, and they say that there's funding, but they're holding on to it because they're going to look to 2021. So they're looking at the horizon, see what happens. And one of the things that people are really paying attention to is budget season. So budget season is coming up for many medium to small or to large businesses. So whether you're on a calendar year or a fiscal year, you start your budgeting in July or August. So if you support a large business, particularly about healthcare. So if you work with a CHI, or if you work with a multi-care, they're starting their budget season. And so they're going to start to see how can they sharpen the pencil, or how can they trim their margins. So one thing you could do is you can get in front of them and you can really lobby that relationship and say, how do I provide value? Because otherwise they're going to look at it in the context of, I have X number of dollars for my budget, and I don't have a relationship. I don't have a face to this. And that doesn't necessarily mean lobby your business partner that you have, but the executive, because ultimately the executive is the one that's going to sign the check. And so really consider that the budget season for 2021 is starting now. And so any dollars that have been allocated, they're going to be spent, $20 they're going to be spent. And you can't really sort of sharpen the pencil or tighten the belt for 2020 because those dollars have been allocated. But for 2021, people certainly can trim, and they're going to start moving beyond trimming the fat, and they're going to start trimming down to the bone. So try and see what you can do in terms of, again, lobbying those relationships, building new relationships. The other thing is, I would say, is businesses can consider consortiums where possible. So it's sort of that on-demand talent or that marketplace. So if you are a coffee shop, maybe you employ 10 people, but you sort of have a flex schedule. And so I'm just spitballing Anthem, and maybe I think it's the is it Electric? It's a new coffee shop. Maybe between the two of them, their schedules are such that they have a pool of employees that they could say, you know what, we're going to, maybe one employee could work at Anthem today versus Electric. So you start to develop your own pool or your consortium of like to like in terms of businesses. The other thing is that real estate investors. So there is, as these businesses sort of start to pivot to virtual, then it's going to have an impact on real estate investors, but also landlords. So perhaps consider if there is a salon, somebody is a salon owner, and there's somebody else who is a florist. Maybe they don't have funds to be open 7 days a week. So the salon owner wants to be open 4 days a week, and the florist wants to be open 3 days a week. So you sort of take this co-sharing approach. So you draft contracts such that two different types of businesses can rent or lease the same building, right? So that neither of them have the full burden of renting or leasing, where that they would not be able to afford to have the building open for 7 days a week. But between the two of them, in fact, the foot traffic, somebody goes and gets their hair done and they buy some flowers. So you can sort of, it's the sort of the consumerization and the monetization at the same time. So it's not even necessarily having similar businesses, it's just how that they can, it's that multiplier effect. The other thing is that real estate agents can work with businesses such as mine to see, I may know that there's a business that's looking for something, and when we can collaborate together. The other thing is that there is, to my knowledge, that there is no central tracking for services. So there's products, but there's no service. So one can think about LinkedIn and marketplaces like Graphite and Fiverr and anyways, any number of marketplaces, but they're all for the individual. So think about a marketplace that is a B2B format. So what I'm specifically saying is it's an integration or it's a synergy of tools. So the chambers could all get together. So I'm specifically thinking about South Sound, Seattle, Fife, Tacoma, Puyallup, Sumner. You have a rich repository of members that people could start to see who needs services. So much like Helen was talking about, that she only happenstance became aware of Farm 12 needed some assistance, that can become a resource instead of just LinkedIn being individuals. There could be a real synergy among businesses and who needs services, even if you provide it pro bono. So I think that there's opportunities to innovate and not just look for funding. So you can look for funding to stay alive, or you can look for the long term and say that this is not going to correct itself in 6 months. It's not going to correct itself in 12 months. We as a community need to come together and not just look for this sort of phased approach that says, well, when construction starts to work, then money will drip, drip, drip into the economy and we'll get taxes. And then when automotive, drip, drip, drip. But collectively, what are the different industries and sectors that can innovate together? And innovate isn't just do something, do the same thing, but do it differently. But set aside that box, set it aside and collectively come together and come up with different ways of doing things differently, just not the same way. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I work with people when they're struggling. I do it complimentary too. So if you have a specific question, I'll work with you. I'll give you a complimentary plan. If it's something of interest, then we move into an engagement. So that's what I have.
I like your innovation. I think it's fortuitous that you, on my screen at least, are positioned right next to Puyallup City Councilwoman Cynthia Jacobson. I think there's a lot that you mentioned earlier that I could see the two of you meeting and having good synergy and some good ideas, and the chamber wants to be right there with you with all of that. So real quickly, because we do want to get to Q&A, but I know I have from Economic Development, Pierce County Economic Development, we have Gary Westcott and Betty Capistani on the line, and just wanted to quickly see if we have some updates from you.
Good afternoon. I think our Councilmember Campbell did a great job covering our new program. Other things that you might have already covered, since I had to step in and out, so my apologies. You saw that the state added another $5 million to their grant program across the state. So I believe that helps the Economic Development Board of Pierce County receive, I believe, 4,075 applications for 35 slots. So hopefully that means that will double the number of slots. So that's a new piece. But any businesses in Pierce County, we encourage them to apply quickly for our business loan program.
Excellent. Thank you. We also have Economic Development Director from the City of Puyallup, Meredith Neal, on the phone. And you know what? Hannah's sandwiched between Cynthia Jacobson, Councilwoman Jacobson, and Meredith Neal. So I like that trio that I'm seeing right there. Add me to the mix. Meredith.
Yep. Thanks, Tara. A couple of quick things. First of all, a big shout out and thank you to Pierce County for expanding the Small Business Relief Fund to include businesses that are located within the city limits. That's been a big help and something that I know a lot of businesses have been really thankful for. We just launched our new choosepuyallup.com website. And there are a couple of things that I'm really excited about on there, and I would encourage you all to go take a look at. One of them is that we have a video that just went live today. It's 45 seconds long, and it talks about our community and how we all support each other. And it has 4 discrete tasks that are ways that people can support local businesses right now. We also have, as part of that, a whole marketing toolkit that businesses can use. They can use the photos that are in there, or they can put their own photos in there, and some suggested wording for how they can share some of it, telling people how to support them while they're closed right now, or if they're open and selling food to go. So go check out choosepuyallup.com, and you'll start seeing some of that probably getting shared around, and I would love for you all to share it too. The last thing, let's see, we're working on right now, we just launched an economic recovery team that's made up of directors in a number of our different departments around the city. And that's really to kind of start looking forward. You know, we're definitely in this mode of building the airplane while we're flying it, as everyone says. And so we wanted to make sure that we were also being more strategic in our thinking. So we're taking a step back, looking forward at both administrative and policy suggestions that we can be working on to both support and revive our businesses as we come out of this, and explore how we come out of this in a way that's stronger and more resilient. So really building back better from where we are right now and taking it forward. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome work. I love the video. Anyone else, any other official on the line that wanted to give an update? Trying to quickly scan. Okay, I see a few questions that have come in. Some have already been answered, but I'll turn it over to Lori to facilitate this portion of it.
Thank you. And I did see Erin Hollenberg from Senator Zeiger's office is on the line. I don't know if Erin had a specific update to add. Okay. Well, we'll get to the questions. And by the way, the questions here are fantastic because I see a lot of people have answered them. I see there was a question for the government officials. Are you encouraging the governor to stop thinking about businesses in terms of whether they are essential, but rather in terms of whether they are safe to operate with specific health-related requirements in place? Based on the information available, there are many businesses that can safely operate in this environment the way essential businesses are currently operating. And I know, I think it was Carolyn who touched on that, and I don't know if Carolyn is still on this call.
I am.
Yeah, and Carolyn, you did sort of address that. Is there, I know you mentioned a few industry sectors. Are there any others or any other tidbits you could add to that question?
I think it's just making sure that your legislators, if you feel like you can operate safely, make your best case and advocate to your legislators and to the governor's office for this. Right now, you know, they have that site where you can go in and ask if you're an essential business. I think that should change into a place where you could go and say, I plan to do these things in my business. I will be, you know, using masks. I will be keeping no more than 2 people coming into my retail store at a time, whatever, you know, the 6-foot distancing. Am I able to be, is this what I need to do to be open? Will this work? And really kind of pushing on the scientists. Once again, there's a lot of people who can stay home and continue to work from home. And maybe they do that for a while longer. The ones where you cannot be at home and still have your business running should be given an opportunity to go back without a determination of whether or not they're essential. And that's the advocacy you need to do right now. We want to do this safely. We're not going to pull the plug off, but, you know, please go in and advocate for making sure that if we're a small business, particularly community owned, you know, so many don't have much, you know, in terms of reserves to operate. Let us see if we can go back and do this safely, and we promise we'll do that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Tara, I'm not sure if you can see, if you can unmute Aaron. I think I can't tell if he put a phone number in there that we need to unmute.
I think I'm good to go if you can hear me now.
Oh, good, great.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did hear you. I was on I had to take a phone call, so that's why I didn't respond. So sorry about that.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, if anyone, I just kind of a quick update there. If anyone, you know, if you know of anyone that needs help, feel free to have them contact our office. I can put my contact information in here again. We're still just kind of, I know unemployment, they send us out updates, and the ESD sent out their kind of starting to go downhill with claims coming in, but they're still obviously at an all-time high with claims that they have. But if you know anybody that needs help, feel free to send them over our way, or if they have questions about essential services, feel free to send them our way. We can do our best like we have to connect with the governor's office, and we're all still working through that and work in progress, but happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you so much, Erin. I do see one question that didn't totally get answered. It says, says to Carolyn, did you say that construction on 167 to 509 is going to go ahead, or is that still perhaps in jeopardy along with other DOT projects?
I think right now, nobody's saying they're going to not do it. I think it's going to be making sure that it can go ahead on the time schedule, judging, if we run into a huge budget problem next year in the transportation sector, there's going to have to be a lot of advocacy to keep that going and to make sure that they understand the importance of that to the region. And remember, there's gonna be a lot of battles for others. But the 167, the Gateway projects, the nice thing about that is that there was a lot of work that went into that and a lot of partnerships in the way the funding is done. You've got a balance of federal money, local partnership money, and toll dollars. We've got to be careful about what's happening with local partnership money too. So I think there's going to be advocacy work, but I think it's going to be something that it's still a high priority project. It's still underway. It's just, I think, as we go into the next transportation budget cycle, it's going to be a challenge. And we just need to make sure we're ready to advocate for the projects we need. But ones that are already underway and that have contracts will definitely have priority.
Thank you, Tara. I'm going to take it back to you. I think that takes care of the questions for today.
Yeah, I see that Robert had asked Helen directly a question. This may be of interest to others as well. He had asked if there's still a backlog of people in the queue that have applied but have not received benefits, or is that included in the numbers? Helen, you wrote him an answer. If you'd like to verbalize it, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting prepared for the next Zoom. Yeah, the answer is that when you see the numbers, those are the people in the queue, but that's not the people who have received funding. I know that my own son, a restaurant worker, 4 weeks, still nothing. So some people are getting it like almost within, 24 hours, but there is a backlog of those folks who are still waiting. The ESD is adding an additional 500 employees this next week. They have literally taken everybody away from every other job, no matter what their title was, to be answering phones and solving questions. So if folks go to the website, there's a huge Q&A section that they may be able to help themselves, but they're doing their best to get funding out to people as quickly as possible. And it is all retroactive. So if you haven't gotten it, you will.
Great. Thanks for further clarification there. Anyone else have any final comments or questions? I'd love to hear. Yes, Councilwoman Jacobson.
Hi. So yeah, just real quick, Puyallup's kind of on hold. We're putting everything on hold because of we don't know what's happening with the revenue. But I just wanted to shout out to Kerry, Yanasak, and the team at Puyallup Main Street Association for trying to get the farmers market open. I did shop at the virtual market, and I was so scared of not getting my produce and stuff. I bought a big farm share. I'm gonna be having to share with all my neighbors because I was kind of freaked out, and I bought a pig basically. So you can do it. I just want to put a shout out for the virtual market. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. Anyone else?
Tara, this is Deanna.
Hi, Deanna.
How would be the best way to petition to get the mall open? Everyone is closed now, and now the mall is demanding rent. Since we can't do business, we can't pay the rent without funds coming in. So anybody got a great idea on petitioning to get the mall open? Because there's plenty of space in there for people to keep their distances. And it's killing all of us small business owners. That's all.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know we have David Montevideo on the line, and I know he's obviously in a tough bind wanting to open. I'm happy to support any advocacy on that behalf. And so maybe that's what we do need to do is kind of meet with all of some of the business owners and get with David, who's also one of our chamber board members. I'm sure there's something we can do, and we're happy to try to do it.
I think one of the things that we could do is write our legislatures, or send an email from the chamber and CC everybody that's a part of this, that wants to be a part of this. I know for myself, I've been thinking about doing it, on behalf of my friends' businesses and stuff. I'm fortunately still deemed essential and able to stay open, but there's a lot of people that are hurting, like Deanna.
One of the things that might be good is for things like that particularly is to, before you write the letter, get a group together who needs to be involved and put together the plan of how it will be done safely. Look at the CDC social distancing measures. What are you going to do about PPE and all that sort of thing? How do you keep everybody safe? I mean, there might be some, you might stagger who's open on given days or something like that to start, to just kind of put a plan together. Because I think the more that you, as the expert in those types of businesses, give the legislators, this is what we think will work, I think the more you'll be listened to. It means you've put some thought into it.
Well, we have Senator Zeiger's ears on the phone, so that's a start.
Tara?
Yes.
Just and some closing, and yeah, definitely letter writing there. I know that there's been a lot of requests to the governor to suspend all rent and mortgages, both residential and commercial. I don't know that the governor's going to go that far. I would need to double check to see if the evictions ban that the governor's put in place may cover commercial businesses, but even if it does, it's just the ban on being evicted. You'd still owe the rent during the time that it was down. So most importantly, work with your landlord from any capacity there. I think when we look at reopening, everyone wants to get as many components open as quickly as possible. It comes down to really two things, and that is PPE and testing. Even if we were, say, to open up everyone tomorrow, most of them don't have PPE in hand. You hear all these great things that many construction companies did a month ago, where they donated all their PPE to the frontline workers in the hospitals. Well, now they're depleted, and there's not a steady supply for them to get it all back. So start looking and thinking about how you're going to have that in hand for your employees, what your policies are going to be. Start getting that in place. And ultimately, from a state level, we have to stand up a comprehensive testing capacity in order to know where this is at. You can go on the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department webpage. Today, 27 new cases in Pierce County. We've really been holding in that 20 to 30 range for a while, although last Saturday we peaked at 60 new cases, 4 new deaths. We've been averaging about 4 deaths a day for the last 3, 4, 5 days. So it's still out there, and it's still real, and it's still having impacts. But I think we're starting to get a handle on where and what, and really I think right now the big pause in the next set of triggers will be for businesses to be able to comprehensively show that they can open up safely, and that's going to be PPE on hand and safe protocols. It used to be in social media, every page you open said wash your hands, and now that's kind of moved away, and we need to get back to remembering washing your hands, covering your cough, wearing PPE. It feels weird to wear a mask out in public, something they do a lot in Asia, but if we start doing that, I think we'll see some of the drops that we need. But really, I just want to thank everyone for having us on here. County's continuing to work on several different fronts, and we welcome the input back and happy to take forward what we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all of those reminders. All right, well, we are at our close, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Certainly our panelists, this was a great discussion. Lots of innovative ideas came from it. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you so much. Stay well.